Hey, what's up? So I just kind of thought I should review some of my tweets because I I feel most of them are great grounds for conversation, and I thought it wouldn't be such a bad idea to give just a little bit of some commentary work on them. Yeah, and that's primarily what I decided to do in this little video. So yeah. Just a day ago, I tweeted, agnosticism, or more strongly, atheism, are pretty hard positions to fake. If you are not one, then you are not one. It shows in what you think constitutes an intelligent argument. The primary reason why I wrote that down is because I have certain friends who kind of who kind of play atheist and agnostics when around me. I don't know for what reason exactly, but or they play as though they're open enough to have the conversation. But when you push them further and ask them to kind of like substantiate the statements they're airing out, you realize that they're as much religious as everybody else. You know what I mean? And that is because if you haven't taken the time to research about the hardest questions of all and about the arguments for the possible existence of God, you can't fake that. If you haven't taken the time to do that, there's no way you're going to fake that. And if you want to just come across as somebody who's actually given the question attention and yet you haven't, it'll be so pretty obvious. You won't even last a minute, you know what I mean? Because that topic, if you haven't really taken the time to sit down and ask yourself the question, what's my position going to be on this particular important topic? You won't fake an opposed opinion or position that you haven't taken deep down in your heart. It will always come out, you know what I mean? So before you start going around trying to look all sophisticated and intellectually informed, it's better you actually do the homework. You know, it's just save yourself the embarrassment. Jehovah's Witnesses make great atheists or agnostics because when you're a witness, you look at other religions as utterly useless and entirely lost. So when you stop being one, those religions, including your own, are not even an option. So you are left with one honest position to take. The reason I tweeted that is I feel, talking from experience, Jehovah's Witnesses make the world's best atheists. Primarily because when you're a witness, you are so convinced in the back of your head that other religions are just a joke. Needless to say, laughable. You know what I mean? When you look at other religions, just those within Christianity, for example, like Pentecostals, Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, all those just look like comedy in your eyes. Those are people that potentially need to be saved and baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, or else they're just wasting their time and they won't get a shot at salvation. That's the framework that witnesses kind of work from. So when you're a witness and then for some reason you intellectually start asking the questions that you're supposed to be asking, and then you find yourself in a place where there's no way you can substantiate your religious precepts. You get to a point where you're left with no option really. You can't default to say Pentecostal or Islam. That's just never going to happen. And if you do, even your fellow witnesses will laugh at you. They'll be like, what the heck? Because that goes to show that if you do default to such a religion, then you never got the point in the first place. So you only have one choice to make, and that is atheism or agnosticism. Beth Sarim, one of the few words you get to know only when you are unaposted. Quite frankly, I didn't know this word when I was a Jehovah's Witness. Beth Sarim. I was actually shocked. I saw it in from some YouTuber who's like an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and then I looked up the word. I was shocked to find it's like some sort of like estate. You know what I mean? Like a house or a building that that Rutherford bought back in the days. I'm not sure when. I think in the 1960s or something like that, or no, earlier than that. So he bought that house because he was of the idea that the resurrected apostles, because the witnesses back in the days were assuming the world would quickly come to an end. So it was assuming people or ancient patriarchs like Moses and the guys will come and be resurrected and live in that house with them. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm just running through the surface, but if you look up this word, it's actually, it's very telling. It's amazing. You know, it's that somebody was so convinced by their religious faith that they felt they should build a house where their resurrected apostles are going to be staying. But then, yeah. Conversation is a very hard task to engage in, but we have no choice but to talk ourselves to light, lest we start killing each other, because where there is no conversation, blood and hate gets a free run. My point there was as obvious, as is already obvious. Conversation is one hard thing to engage in, but we have no choice but to talk ourselves to light. You see, it's hard to talk about certain topics, especially God and religion and racism and all that stuff. There are certain topics that are so hard to talk about, but we have no other option aside from talking about them. Because if we don't talk about them, we create room for hate to grow. Because only in conversation can certain stupid ideas be filtered out so clearly, to a point where it's so embarrassing and laughable to uphold or to hold on to them, you know what I mean? And only conversation can get us to a point where we can uphold rationality, reason, and truth without losing blood. If we don't start to conversate, we'll go back to the days when people were bent to the stake and killed for simply believing a view that runs counter to the norm. So conversation is very important. Let's have conversation about the hardest topics of all, because each one of us is faced with the question, with the most important questions of life. Why are we here? What happens to us when we die? Is there a God? These are questions that the mere fact that you're living, you have to answer. Looking at the vast and diverse religions that admit of varied and sometimes irreconcilable religious experience, it sure does take some serious balls to assert your own religion as being the one and true trajectory to the God of the universe. What I meant to say there was, if you look around, there's a lot of religious diversity, a lot of people with different backgrounds, different religious experiences, talk about different things altogether. So for you to just wake up and say your religion is the only true religion, it takes some serious balls. You know what I mean? There's people saying they've seen God, there's people saying they've heard God, there's people saying they've seen miracles, there's people saying they've seen amputees getting back their body parts because after being prayed for. There's the diversity of religious experience is just mind-boggling. And for you to just wake up and say, look, ours is the ultimate one, that's some serious conceitedness that just has to come with that blanket statement. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't even know how I can put this out. But at the same time, the mere fact that, say, for example, you're a Catholic, if you go to the roots of your decision, you find out that you're a Catholic because of certain reasons that cannot be accounted for by Pentecostals or Seventh-day Adventists. You know what I mean? So there's always going to be ideas that are so irreconcilable, which is just the baggage that you have to handle as a religious person. If you're born and you die without losing tons of blood in the jaws of life's biggest debate, God, then you practically never lived. You see, if there's any conversation that is so important that all of us should be having, is God. You know what I mean? If there's a God out there watching us, that's a very important question all of us should be asking. And if there's truly places like hell, none of us wants to be there, trust me. But the only way we're going to find this out is unfiltered conversation, honest questions, and hard debate. And if you go around life trying to hide from all these questions, thinking you could just slip through life as if you never lived, that's just laughable. These are questions that you can't duck. You're going to have kids, they're going to ask you those questions. You're going to be surrounded by people who need answers. You just practically can't run away from these questions. So read as much as you can, research, ask questions, have conversations with friends and family. There's no way of running away from this topic. Really. Can can't pray with you in times of tragedy, can't offer false consolation on your deathbed, can't tell you anything my mind can fully conceive, can't sing and dance to the sounds of church bells with you, but I have a whole universe to offer. So what I was basically trying to say there was, if I was to land myself a sentimental relationship, these are some of the things I would tell a potential mate. See, I can't do certain things with you. Like, I'm not the type of guy that will hold your hand and bow down and pray with you. I'm not the type of guy that will go to church with you. I'm not the type of guy who will offer you consolation, scriptural consolation in times of trouble. That is not to say I don't have anything to offer. But I'm a type of guy who will tell you honestly when you're going through struggles, for what I see the struggle to be. You know what I mean? That is not to say I can offer consolation, but these are some of the limits as a person that I can offer emotionally and sentimentally. Yeah. Every sentient being interested in understanding the true sense of humility should buy out the time to listen to Carl Sagan's 1994 Lost lecture, The Edge of Exploration. Truly humbling. If you haven't seen that lecture video, it's very nice. You should look it up on YouTube. It's called Carl Sagan's 1994 Lost lecture, Edge of Exploration talk. It's very enlightening, you know what I mean? Especially if you're new to astronomy. That will just get you to love the field. It will get you to love space, science. It will just turn you into an astrophile instantly. You know, he gives the talk. In the talk, he talks about how we've made so much progress as humanity in understanding space and our place in it. You know, he talks about how back in the days we were so occupied by the idea that we're the primary thing in the universe and everything is out here for our benefit. And then with time, we got to realize just how big and tiny we are in this on the scale, which is humbling, you know what I mean? And then he takes you throughout the edges where when people believed in the geocentric mode of the universe, then they progressed to heliocentrism, and then we progress to, it takes you all throughout that journey, you know what I mean? So it's a talk that I feel is worth listening to because it helps you gain some humility and humbleness, especially if you're a person who believes that everything that you see around you, the biodiversity, the stars are just there for your amusement. Countless times when I'm reading through my Bible, I can't help but think, damn, I can make for a pretty crazy apologist. But honesty always reminds me I can't get away with it. That's why if I crowed my ass back into theism, it would be as secretive as my addictions. What I meant to say there was, you know, I do read the Bible countless times. And when I read the Bible, I can even see, like, here's how I can dance around this. Here's how I can dance around that. Here's how I can duck this question. Here's how I can explain this. You know what I mean? But deep down in your heart, you know, no, this is certainly, something is not right here. You know, and it wouldn't be so much justice on your part to dance around the things like that. So, for example, topics that are clearly in the wrong, like slavery. There are many ways you could dance around that. And we've heard different explanations from apologists and theists and many others in between. That if you look at it really, it's just what is commonly called mental gymnastics to explain things that are clearly in the wrong. So I just don't see it as a very honest venture to go to great extremes to explain things that clearly don't hold water. Occam's razor does justice there. And I think in conclusion, let me close by this tweet, which is a quote from Seneca. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. In the song that I released just recently called Nirvana, there was a part where I said, the gravity of animal and human suffering can drive you to tears. It's the cost of being alive. You know, this world is engulfed in suffering that's just jaw-dropping if you sit down and look at it. You know, it's like everything is perfectly designed to just rubbish our efforts at happiness. You know, the gravity of it. And when Seneca put that statement out, it's like there's no need to cry over parts of life. The whole lot of it just calls for tears, you know what I mean? But there's beauty in that too, which is amazing. Yeah.
Human, you've always thought highly of yourself and you figured out a way of knitting a pompous purpose to your own skin. Almost as if human isn't an all too straight word imbued with the connotation. Man is simply an animal belonging to the genus Homo. And needless to say, the more ignorant you were of the world beyond your own